Depending on what type of information is given in our problem, sometimes law of sines won't work. In that case, we have to turn to law of cosines. It's a little bit more complicated, but it still does the same things. It allows us to find missing sides and missing angles of triangles, but mainly on triangles that are non-right. Remember, if they're right triangles, use Pythagorean theorem and other methods. But if they're not right triangles, law of sines and cosines are the way to go. Now, for law of cosines, there is a formula that solves everything. I've written it down into various forms. These are all the same formulas, just in different formats. Now, the ones on the left here, these are ones we want if we're finding sides. You notice the things that are isolated are the little letters, because remember, little letters are the sides. If you're trying to find angle, use the ones on the right. You see we got big A, big B, big C. Those are the angles. Okay, so depending on what we're trying to find, we'll use one of these 6 formulas. They're all very similar. There are some sign differences throughout. So our first problem here, we're going to give us a triangle. Go ahead and label it. This is corner A, corner B, and corner C. So big A, big B, big C. They're going to give us some sides, 12, 18, and 28. And they're going to tell us find the measure of angle B. Okay, so I'm going to mark it. We're trying to find angle B, this one here. Don't know how big that is. Now, if we're trying to use law of sines, remember we need pairs. So I have big B, I have little b. I also have little a and little c. So I have big B, little b. Do I have little a, big A? No, I don't have big A. Don't have that. Do I have little b, big C, little c, big C? No. So I can't use pairs, I can't use law of sines. So I have to use law of cosines. I'm trying to find big B here. Okay, so I'm going to look back up here. Big B is an angle, so I go back up here, big B, trying to find big B. Ooh, let's try and use this. See, it's got big B right there. Over here are all the things that we will need in order to solve for it. So I need little a. Actually, let me write this down here. So cosine big B equals a little a squared minus b squared plus c squared over 2ac. So let's see if we have everything we need. Do I have little a? Yeah, it's 18. Do I have little b? Yeah, 28. Little c, 12. A again, C again. Yes, so I have everything we need to find big B. So let's plug all that in. So cosine of big B. I'll leave B alone because that's what I'm trying to find. Little a, 18 squared, minus little b, 28 squared, plus little c, 12 squared, times 2 times 18 and 12. Okay, so I've got everything plugged in, and now it just takes us to our calculator time to find all this. So 18 squared is 324. Now careful here, this one is 28 squared, then apply the negative sign. So negative 784 plus 12 squared is 144 all over 2 times 18 times 12, that comes out to a 432. Okay, so adding across the top, those 3 numbers, you come out to a negative 316 over 432. Now that isn't our final answer, because remember from above, we haven't been following down this left-hand side. It's not what B is right now, that's what cosine of B is. I need to get regular B by itself. So I need to move the cosine to the other side. And remember, to do that, to move cosine, you need to inverse it. So you can make this fraction into a decimal, or just let your calculator do all of it. Let's find the cosine inverse of 316, negative 316, over 432. That comes out to 137.0107. Now remember, Big B, big letters are angles, so this is in degrees. So we found that angle B is about 137 degrees. And we look up here, you know what? I could be convinced to say that is 137 degrees. All right, it's less than 180, so everything could add up. So that looks good. Now, if you get some ridiculous number, like bigger than 180 or smaller than 1, then something's up and you might want to recheck the math. So let's try another one. They give us this triangle here. Angle A, angle B, angle C. They give us on the sides 12, 9, 13. So maybe this time, instead of waiting to find out what we're trying to find, let's label our sides. So 9 is little a, 12 is little c, and 13 is little b. Okay, I notice there's no pairs here, no big letters, no angles, so I can't really use law of sines, so it's going to be law of cosines. Now the instructions specifically are going to tell us, for this one, find the measure of angle C. So angle C is this one, and that's going to take us back up to the top. We want to find big C. So that one is now going to be this one right here. Okay. So if I write that one out, I'm trying to find the cosine of big C. That equation is a squared plus b squared minus c squared over 2ab. And I can check, do I have everything we need? Little a, yep. Little b, yep. Little c, those are all the sides. Remember, all the little letters are the sides. So I have everything we need to find big C. So let's go ahead and plug those in. This time I'll put blanks to show what we're plugging in and where. Okay, so I'm just using this equation. So let's plug in. Little a, that's 9. Little b, 13. Little c, 12. Little a again is 9, and little b, 13. Get to work on the calculator. 9 squared is 81. 13 is 169. Then the last one's going to be minus 144. Over that number on the bottom, 234. Cleaning it up on top, combining those three numbers comes out to a positive 106. Bottom is still 234. And remember, down here we still have cosine of big C. To get big C by itself, we move cosine to the other side. In order to do that, we need to inverse it. So on our calculator, the cosine inverse of 106 over 234. Let's see what that comes out to. 63.1-ish. And remember, we need to put this in degrees because it is an angle. So we can check it back on the picture. Does 63-ish degrees look like it makes sense for that? Yeah, I can get on board with that. All right, so we've seen two problems where we've solved for angles. Now let's go ahead and see if we can do one that solves for sides. Use the other set of equations. Big C, big B, big A. They're going to give us this is 88 degrees. And they're going to tell us that 20 centimeters over here and 25 centimeters over here. I like the label. So over here, that's little a. This side is little c. Let's see what they're going to ask us for. The instructions will say find side AC. So AC is this one over here, better known as little b. We're trying to find little b. So if I go back up to the top, this is a side. I'm trying to find a side. So let's look at my side equations. I'm trying to find little b. Little b would be this one. So let me pull that equation down. See if we have everything we need to find that. So finding little b is b squared equals a squared plus c squared minus 2ac times the cosine of big B. Let's see. Do I have little a? Yeah. Little c? Yeah. And c, good. Big B, yep. I have everything we need. Let's plug it in. So b squared equals, I'll put the blanks to show what we're plugging in here. All right. So going in, little a, 20. Little c, 25. 20 and 25 again. And then big B is the angle, 88 degrees. All right. So the reason I put so many parentheses here is because we want to think of these as three chunks. We've got this plus this minus all of that. So as long as you remember your order of operations, it really doesn't matter how you kind of go through it as long as you're following correctly. 20 squared, we can do that. That's a 400. 25 squared, that's a 625. Now this whole thing over here, you want to put in a calculator. It's 2 times 20 times 25 times the cosine of 88. So 2 times 20 times 25 times the cosine, regular cosine, of 88 degrees. I come out to a 30.8995. But we still have this minus sign here, so I'll put it right there. All right, combining all of that together, 400 plus 625 minus the 34.8995 comes out to 990.1005. Now, if you think about that answer, 990, ooh, that doesn't make sense. I've got a 20, a 25, and this one's going to be 990. But remember, over here, we didn't pull down what we actually had. It's b squared. I don't want b squared. I want regular b. So to get rid of the square, we square root both sides. So that's going to knock that number down significantly. We're going to square root that 990. And little b now is going to come out to 31.4659. And that number looks a lot better on here. 20, 25, and 31. The only thing we want to take care of is there are units. So this is 31-ish centimeters. And that now looks good. So here's kind of a way to sum this up. If there are pairs, it's obviously better to use law of sines. It's a little bit simpler. Law of cosines is really our last resort. And you want to make sure you're using the correct formulas, the ones we have up at the top here. If you're trying to find sides over here, if you're trying to find angles over here, and just make sure you have everything you need. Okay, make sure you have all the sides, all the angles, anything you need to plug into these formulas.